Hello, my name is Jason Stoddard, and I'd like to present to you a vision for a new Canada. Come on, Canadians, let's get together. Let's create a new Canada. You know, Canada now has the fastest growing homeless rate in the world. I don't even know how that's possible. It's such a prosperous country. Roughly 4.7 million Canadians live in a state of food insecurity. And food insecurity is not having access to fresh foods, just prepackaged cheap garbage food. The root cause of hunger in Canada is low income, which consistently affects more than 4 million Canadians at any at any given time. It's about 10% of the population. Each month, over 850,000 people turn to food banks for help. More than one-third of those are children and youth. And that's sad. Gotta ask ourselves, why is this happening? Canadians pay a whopping 42.5% of their income in taxes. Last year, Canadian families spent more on taxes than on life's basic necessities, and that includes housing. Isn't it time this changed? Isn't it time to turn the tables on this? Modern slaves are not in chains. They are in debt. The country's in debt, the province is in debt, we're in debt, we're slaves to debt and taxes. A government which lays taxes on the people, not required by urgent public necessity and sound public policy, is not a protector of liberty, but it's an instrument of tyranny. It condemns the citizen to servitude. That means we are slaves to the system. We are nothing more than ATMs, bank machines to the government. Go to work, give us your money. Now, we have this carbon tax coming. The government will now be taxing a tax. How's this even legal? Trudeau gives away hundreds of millions of our tax dollars to some of the most corrupt dictators in the world. Insane. I want you all to stay angry. Trudeau responds to the $10.5 million payout to Omar Khadr. Why are we importing $17 billion a year in foreign oil? We have the third largest reserve in the world. Something fishy going on there. Sounds like a scam. They're making dangerous changes to our justice system that does not benefit the public. Our border has become a valet service. People walk across, they get a nice drive to the hotel room and money stuffed in their pocket, while soldiers and veterans can't even get the proper benefits that are due them because the government's ripping them off, and the courts have declined it. Did you know the number of homeless pensioners is the highest it's been for a decade? So tell me how well things are going here in Canada, Trudeau? Canada is broken. When you have Canadians who are living in tents that are being evicted from a park and are having to move into the woods when we are welcoming illegal border crossers, putting them up in hotels, giving them money, healthcare, and medicine, something is very, very wrong. We have a prime minister that has 4 ethics violations but has not received any punishments whatsoever. One law for them, another law for us. Now, looking at our healthcare, our healthcare is in dire need of more beds, doctors, nurses, and staff. If anybody's had the privilege of being at the hospital in an emergency, you could be there like 8 to 10 hours before you're able to get out. The aging of Canada's population, the baby boomers, is expected to have a major impact on the country's economy, the society, and our healthcare system over the next 25 to 30 years. And that just means it's going to cost us a lot more money. If the wait times are this long now, can you imagine what they're going to be like in the coming years? Instead of 8 to 10 hours, it's going to be 1 to 2 days. Where's the money coming from to fix all these problems? And I'll tell you right now, the government just looks at us as to where the money's coming from. But there is a better way. Trudeau earmarks billions for overseas projects while Canadians here are pleading for his help. But it doesn't seem to matter. You know, we're going to get buried in taxes unless we find a better way to generate tax revenue. And we can. And I will show you. It's time to turn the tables. It's time to turn the tables on this situation. It's time to turn the tables on homelessness, on hunger. You should only be homeless if you want to be, and hungry if you're on a diet. It's time for us to stop being slaves to the system, to the tax system, to the political system. A new Canada is a vision for a more citizen-centered government. Doesn't that make sense? Government's supposed to be looking out for us. That's what we pay them to do. The citizens of the country should be the ones to decide what goes on in their country. I think that makes sense, does it not? Or would you rather sit back and let somebody just do whatever they want? Our current form of democracy is called elected representation, and since 1867, the ruling government has gone back and forth between Liberal and Conservatives and other parties at least 17 times. And for 152 years, Canada has been run using elected representation. But democracy isn't just elected representation. Why do we never hear about the alternative? Well, we don't, because that puts the power back in the hands of the people. Here's a definition of democracy. Democracy is government being exercised by the people, either directly or through elected representatives. Democracy is majority rule. Democracy is the principles of social equality and respect for everyone. The first rule, government being exercised by the people either directly or through elected representatives. We do not have to keep using elected representatives. We also have the choice to have a direct democracy or a form of direct democracy, but you won't hear that. They don't want you to know that. They only think you can use elected representatives. Direct democracy will give Canadians, well, all the control over our tax systems. It will give us all the control over how our taxes are being spent, and even stop all this giving away of it. Canadians will have a direct say in all aspects of how our government is run. Our laws and our culture will truly reflect who Canadians really are. And if we're going to have direct democracy or a form of it, we must have online voting. We can make it very secure, far more secure than the ballots we have now. Voter turnout is essential in a direct democracy, and ease of voting will help facilitate that, so you can whip your phone out and vote. Let's recap. Canada has the fastest growing homeless rate in the world. Don't believe me? Look it up. Almost 1 million Canadians have to go to food banks, and over 300,000 of those are children and youth. You know, it's going to cost billions of dollars to address these issues over the coming years. And if all this wasn't enough, Trudeau says Canada has no core identity. Well, I am Canadian. I have an identity. And I see many other people that would disagree with that statement. Canada has a core identity. Canadians are known around the world. These men and women fought to keep Canada free. These people volunteered to go to war. You will never see a braver face in the world. We need to be watchful for the erosion of our rights and freedoms. We have a charter of rights and freedoms that those people fought and died for. And now the House of Commons passes an anti-Islamophobia bill. We have a right to freedom of expression in our charter, and this is how it starts. They start chipping away at our rights. In a direct democracy, we would be voting on issues like mass immigration. Boy, do I wish we could vote on that. Foreign aid, the United Nations, and everything else that affects this country, I would love to have a direct vote on. I'm sure many others would. It only takes 250 Canadians, people, and some paperwork to start a registered political party in Canada. Why wouldn't we be doing this? Let's take the opportunity now, because there's a vote coming up. We can make a difference, but we have to do it together. Become a registered member. It's free. Not asking any money. You know, it's not just the NDP, the Liberals, or the Conservatives. Any political party can be elected into power. So remember that. So how about we go out and we vote ourselves a raise? The politicians sure do it. They do it a lot. Okay, so let's compare some oil revenues between Norway and Alberta, Canada. And all the numbers are approximate. Norway comes in at about 1.48 million barrels per day, approximately. Alberta comes in at 2.3 million barrels per day. In Norway, you get free education all the way through postgraduate university. That's pretty nice. But Albertans must pay for costly college and university education. It's very expensive. After just 23 years of oil revenue, Norway has over $1 trillion saved in a government fund. That's 1,000 stacks. Each one of those stacks is $1 billion. It's a lot of money. Alberta's provincial debt is forecast to hit $71.1 billion by 2019-2020. After 40 years, Alberta has saved about $17.2 billion, and that's about 0.017% of Norway's savings. That's right. Subtract the provincial debt, and you have almost $54 billion in debt. Does anybody see something wrong with this picture? I know I certainly do. I think Canadians deserve a lot better than this, and more transparency. You got to ask ourselves, where did all the trillions of dollars go that's been taken out of our oil fields and our natural gas? Where did it go? Canadians should be the one that are benefiting by this, not private oil corporations. We're just stuffing money into their banks accounts and their pockets and wallets, and they walk away laughing at us because they take our oil for next to nothing and then sell it back to us as gas. What were all the previous governments doing while this was going on? Well, they were trying to figure out ways to tax you into poverty, and they've pretty well done a good job of that. Now, what if Canadians or Canada followed Norway's lead and we created our own national oil and natural gas company so we profit directly from our oil and natural gas? You know, we're going to be using fossil fuels for at least, I would say, the next 10 to 20 years. I think that's being realistic. So why would we be pumping all these hundreds of billions of dollars, I would say even trillions of dollars over 10, 15 years into some company's pocket? That is insane. We give them the oil and they sell it back to us at a huge markup in gas. How about we pump, every time we go to the get gas, how about we pump that directly back into our country? The profits will go directly into tax revenue. Let's think about this. How much gas and diesel is sold across Canada every day? You know, there's a lot of cars in Canada. And it found a figure that says Canada has approximately 23.5 million cars on the road in Canada. So let's do a guesstimate, just to give us an idea of maybe numbers we're talking about here. If just 20% of those 23.5 million cars stop and get $40 worth of gas, and gas is $1 a liter, that's $188 million gross profit every single day. Do you think Canadians can be putting that money to good use? And over a year, that's over $68 billion in gross tax revenue. I think Canadians would benefit greatly in their healthcare and their essential services. And in 15 years, that is $1 trillion in gross tax revenue. Can you understand how much money is being pumped into the pockets of the oil companies? Billions and billions of tax revenue will be coming in year after year until we get rid of fossil fuels. And that is a plan. Because now that we have all this money coming in, we can start funding research and development into alternatives to fossil fuels. We need to get off fossil fuels. And we need to find something that doesn't pollute the environment when we use it. Having that money will certainly help. I think we found the money we needed to handle some of these larger issues in our society. We've got, if we decide to do our own oil company, that money can come in and we can start addressing hunger, homelessness, affordable housing. You know, that's a big thing. Affordable housing is drying up. There's basically none. From what I heard, the waiting list could be up to like 5, 6, 7, 8 years just to get into an affordable house. I think it's time we stopped this ripoff of our oil and our natural gas resources. It's time to redirect that money back in to Canada. The Norwegians did it, and we need to catch up because they're making us look bad. The next fixed election date is October 29th, 2019. You want to see a new Canada? Do you want to see one that will benefit Canadians? So far, what are your options? Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, Green, I guess. The bought and paid for media has made sure that's the only choices you think you have. Isn't that convenient? Why do you think that's the only ones they want you to have? Well, Faith Goldy found out that if you're not one of the big three, they won't run your campaign. They won't let other parties come in. Unifor, the boss, says we're conscripting Canadian journalists to re-elect Trudeau. How is that even possible? It's time for us to think outside the box because they are herding us like cattle and they are dictating to us who we can vote for. They are leading you and me down the garden path. And we better stop, lift our heads up, wake up, and see what's going on. We have gone back and forth between the Liberals and Conservatives, approximately 17 times or so. Does anyone else see a problem with this? 17 times. This is why we are where we are. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. And somehow you expect things to be different. Well, guess what? Things aren't going to be any different. It's not working. It's at least 17 times, if not more, between Conservatives and Liberals and other parties involved. It's over 17. And this is why we are where we are, because it's not working. And it's not going to work the 18th time either. Is that hard to see? That doing this 17 times and we are where we are, that doing it one more time is not going to change where we are. After 152 years of elected representation, it's painfully obvious Canadians need something else. Elected representation has failed miserably. We've forgotten that we, the people, are the nation, not the people we elect. We need to start taking control of our future and our destiny, our laws. We need to have a say in all this. It's time to reboot this system. It's broken, and it no longer cares for its citizens. It only cares about itself and enriching itself, in my opinion. Yeah, there might be a few good ones out there, but please go to www.anuka.ca and become a registered member. And like I said, it's free. And a registered member means that when it comes time to create the party, you will give your information to Elections Canada so they can validate you. So come the next federal election, vote for a new Canada.